I met the wrong door before I met the right man. The map in my pocket was soft from 100 foldings, and still the wind near took it as I rode into Red Bluff through a white sky. The cold tasted like iron, biting through wool. My mare, Clementine, shoved through drifts until a house rose from the weather like a ship from fogged. I was a mail-order bride. I had come a long way to be chosen. I lifted the knocker with a glove that didn't keep feeling in my fingers. The door opened on a man built to fill doorways, tall, unshaven, shoulders like barn beams under a dark coat sugared with snow. Gray, eyes hard, a plain wedding band dull with wear. He looked at me as if the storm had coughed me up to test him. "Mr. Carter?" My voice came out smaller than I meant. "I'm Annabelle Sinclair. We've been corresponding. I'm to be your wife." His mouth flattened. "Name's Colt Rafferty," he said, "and I didn't order a bride." The wind shoved between us, slapping snow across my skirts. Panic rose steady as my breath. My letters, Missoula Post, Mrs. Peabody's agency, were clear: widower Carter, one daughter, seeking a woman who could read scripture without preaching it. I had not planned for a Colt Rafferty with a shut door in his hands. "Please," I said. "Dignity is cheaper than warmth, but costs the same when you're starving for it. There's been a mistake. I rode 2 days through sleet. If you turn me back now, I won't make Deadwood before dark, and my horse won't either." His jaw worked. He began to close the door anyway. That a small toy lay behind his boot. A carved wooden mare with one wheel missing, tipped on its side as if it had been caught mid-flight and fallen. The sight of it stole the last of my pride. "I can cook," I said. "I can stitch a torn hand and a torn hem. I'll sleep in the barn. I won't trouble you more than a snow fence." Timber cracked out in the white with a sound like a rifle. He flinched. "Barn's full of stock," he said, glancing past me into the blindness. His gaze came back to the frost on my bonnet and the shake in my hands. Whatever ledger he kept in his head, the numbers changed. "One night," he said, voice flat as a shovel blade. "Till the weather lets up." Heat met me at the threshold like mercy. The room smelled of coffee gone bitter, saddle soap, and a sadness that had learned to keep quiet. I turned to thank him and caught the ghost of a woman, not in flesh, but in the way the house remembered her. A shawl on a peg, a portrait dusted clean on the mantel, a braid of hair looped with ribbon. Above it, "Thank you, Mr. Rafferty," I said. "I'll earn my keep." He gave me a look that said it wasn't likely and latched the door against the storm. Snow needled the windows. The lantern shook on its hook. I unwrapped my scarf, worked feeling back into my fingers, and tried to fit my voice to this room. And this man. I had come for a promised name and found another. A life doesn't always begin with welcome. Sometimes it starts with survival and a borrowed night, and the uneasy thought that the wrong door can still open the right future if you dare cross it. The house was built like a man who never expected company. Straight-backed, spare, everything useful and nothing more. Colt showed me the parlor. One chair by the stove, a small rocker with a folded blanket, a mantel portrait of a woman whose braid would never come loose again. "I'll put you by the fire," he said. "Dry out. When the sky turns, you go." "Yes, Mr. Rafferty." Pride swallows easier with coffee. While the kettle knocked about, I noticed what didn't fit the discipline. A wooden horse with one wheel, a doll with mismatched stitches, blocks, leaning into a crooked house. I righted them by habit. Small order keeps a heart from caving in. Small footsteps paused in the doorway. A girl in a flannel nightdress stood barefoot, as if the floor might rise like water. Hair the color of sun-dried straw, eyes his exact gray. She clutched a ribbon until it cut her fingers white. "Emmy," Colt said, his voice gentled so suddenly it almost broke. "Back to bed, bug." She didn't move. Children know weather better than men. I crouched so she wouldn't have to look up far. "Hello, I'm Annabelle." Came the wrong road to the right porch, seems. She listened the way some children listen, careful not to spill. Then she crossed the room and pressed her face to my coat as if to test whether I was smoke. Her voice was a reed rubbed by wind. "God finally sent you to us." Colt inhaled like a man touching a stove. His hand found the chair back and held. The words rang in the hollows of me. I'd kept braced all the way west. I held her careful as a teacup and looked up. "How long has she?" 3 years, he said rough. Not a word since her ma. The kettle screamed. No one hushed it. Emmy lifted her head to study me like she meant to memorize. Her fingers found the seam of my glove. A smile tugged, twitched, held. "I like biscuits," she said, as if finishing a sentence she'd started long ago. "I burn them less than I used to," I answered. "We could try together." Something in Colt's face unlatched, not loose, but no longer nailed shut. He poured coffee with a trap cutter's care. We ate beans and hard bread, and he watched us as if learning a foreign tongue by ear. After dishes, Emmy sagged into sleep on a quilt near the stove, the doll tucked into her elbow. Colt cleared his throat without looking at me. "Storms set in," he said. "Road'll be gone by morning. You can stay till it breaks." "Thank you," I said, and meant more than whether that I took the rocker that had once been another woman's and set my boots on the braided rug she had braided with patient hands. Grief rustled the room like a draft checking latches. I didn't try to talk it warm. I mended a loose stitch on my glove. Colt pretended to whittle and never see you t'd at last, he said, still to the stick. "You're not the woman you came to be. I ain't the man you came for. But the child is who I'm here for now," I said. Outside, the wind pressed its great shoulder to the walls. The windows hummed. Inside, 3 hearts found the stove's tick and kept to it. The wrong bride had come to the wrong door under the wrong sky, and still it felt like the first right thing in a long while. The blizzard stitched the days together so tight they felt like one long breath. Mornings were Colt's boots and the snap of an axe. Nights were the stove settling to coals while the wind scoured the eaves that I patched where the house leaked light, flour, paste along frames, quilts in doorways to pen the heat. Colt hauled in rounds 2 at a time. He stacked them square, then, without comment, left the best by the stove where my hands could reach. That was his language, provision without permission to call it kindness. Emmy orbited me, drawing horses, with ladder legs and sons with wheat bright rays while I cooked. When the tin cut biscuits, she pressed one into a crooked heart, proud as if she'd hammered iron. "Crunchy," she judged, "like snow." Colt took his coffee like penance. "Not bad," he said of the biscuits, which I suspected was Montana for praise. When he thought I wasn't looking, he slid the darkest one to the blue heeler and pretended the dog had robbed him. Emmy scolded both and appointed herself biscuit sheriff. The house kept a careful silence. A shawl on its peg, a braid above the mantel catching firelight like late wheat. I never set my sewing on the cedar chest at the foot of the bed I did not share. Some altars you honor by leaving bare. I copied a stew from a card in another woman's hand and returned it to its tin with the edges straightened at a tea night. With the gale thrumming, Colt spoke of fences and calves. Emmy corrected him when he forgot the cats' names. I told them about river towns where steamboats talk in whistles, and about the schoolmarm who taught me to mend more than cloth. I left out the surgeon's tent and the soft voice that said, "We took more than the bullet." On the 3rd morning the sky eased to gray, but the trail was still a throat of drifts. We fed the stock together. Colt's sorrel, Lark, nodded at Emmy. My mare Clementine bumped my coat for apples I didn't have and got a lecture about greediness that would have reformed a senator. Work made us companionable without questions. Trust didn't arrive with trumpets. It came like kindling. Colt knocked snow from my skirt without touching me. I learned to read when he was about to speak by the way his thumb circled a callus. We talked of the north window that howled, the hinge on the lean-to, the pump that needed coaxing. He told me where the spare blankets were, bottom of the cedar chest, and his voice caught on the word. After Emmy slept, I darned by lamplight while the storm argued itself hoarse. My valise under the bed held the little a woman can claim as hers. A letter lay inside, unsealed, because I've never liked to hear paper crack like bone, in a doctor's hand that might as well be a gavel. I thought of burning it, then slid it deeper. Near midnight the wind shifted, a plank answered. I banked the fire and lay on my pallet. In the dark I heard Colt cross the floor, a long, careful shape that had learned to make no more noise than necessary. The wrong bride, the wrong door, the wrong sky. And yet, the house no longer resisted me. It listened. So did the man. And the child kept her new voice by sleeping with one hand tucked in the pocket of my coat. The wind eased enough to hear the house breathe. We decided on extra blankets from the cedar chest because the night promised a mean cold. Colt pried at the lid with the poker. I knelt to clear space at the foot of the bed. My valise had slid there earlier when I'd hunted a thimble. A corner gaped. I'll get it, I said, reaching to push it back. The chest side open, the room filling with camphor. A paper slipped from the valise and came to rest by his boot, unsealed, folded twice, my name in a neat doctor's hand. I'd rather you didn't, I said, then added, because a plea never stops a truth. If you're going to, do it proper. Sit. He sat on the trunk's edge. It's not my right. It's my past, I said. It walks ahead of me anyway. He unfolded the letter with care that felt like respect, not nosing. His eyes traveled left to right. I watched his face, not the page. He pressed his mouth thin. You were hurt, he said at last. Field hospital. They took more than the bullet. The stove ticked. Outside Vicksburg, I said. A shell tore the canvas and me with it. They called it necessary. I learned to say it like a prayer you don't believe. He folded the paper along its old lines. Children aren't likely. Not likely at all, I answered. I came west thinking there's still usefulness in a woman who can keep a house and see a man through winter. I did not expect to be wanted as a cradle. Shame hissed like snow on iron. I looked at the braid above the mantel. Should have told you the first night. You told me when it mattered, he said. Before any promises. I don't hold with a lie if a life ain't been asked of it yet. Grief shadowed his voice, his and mine. He set the letter between us like a knife laid safe. I don't pity you, he said, meeting my eyes. I know the feeling of doing what had to be done and carrying it after. Relief didn't come. Something steadier did, like a door finally turning on its hinge. I can be of use, I said, tears threatening. Even if I can't, you already are, he said, gentle. Emmy needs steadiness. She doesn't need remaking. We sat with the letter like a fourth person. He handed the paper back as though it weighed, not stained. Keep it or burn it, he said, but let it be yours again. I slid it into the valise without burying it deep. Hiding is a kind of hunger. Thank you, I said. The word small for what I meant. He lifted the blankets. Will whispered. I'll fix the hinge tomorrow, he said, nodding at the chest. It shouldn't stick. It's not the hinge, I said. Wood swells and weather. We were not talking about the chest anymore. He handed me the top blanket. Our fingers didn't touch, but the nearness felt like a vow that needed no altar. Emmy slept on the braided rug, curled around the wooden horse with one wheel. She didn't stir when we tucked a layer over her. The house settled, accepting the weight without complaint. Good night, Annabelle, Colt said. Good night. I answered, hearing no pity in it, only respect. A thread pulled tight between us, strong. Enough to hold. Not a promise, not yet, but something honest and finally mine. The sky went pewter and held. We had a lull between squalls for chores and the kind of thinking done with busy hands. Emmy drew while I scrubbed. When she slid her paper over, I looked 3 figures, all angles. One tall with a block hat. One small stick arms. A woman dragged sideways, feet trailing, a red crayon ground to dust where the body scraped. At the bottom, crooked letters. PA is sleep. Tell me about your picture, I said. Emmy tapped the tall one. That night, she whispered. Pa is sleep. He had firewater. Her finger hovered over the woman. Mama made the plate break. Then quiet. Then the floor was red. I hid in the wood box. Pa went outside. A man came. He smelled like lye. And horses. She made a mark, boots. They took Mama. 2 sets. Her eyes begged for it to end different. Pa didn't take her. The room tipped. Who was the other man? He gave me a peppermint once, she said. Said, don't tell. Colt was stacking wood on the porch. I brought the drawing like a found snake. He read it and went still as ice. She remembers, I said. I don't, he answered. Not. The end. Morton, sheriff at Red Bluff, found me on a cot at the livery next morning. Drunk, blood on my shirt and the floor. Ella Laner was gone. No body. Storm ate the tracks. Folks whispered. Morton said lie low and let weather tidy it. You think you hurt her? I don't know, he said hollow. I remember shouting. A plate. Her braid when she turned from me. Then nothing. I quit the bottle that day. It didn't give me the rest back. I didn't touch him. Emmy remembers 2 sets of boots, I said. She remembers being told not to tell. That's not the weather. I prayed it was me, he whispered. That would make a kind of sense. Guilt makes anything look like your own tracks, I said. Truth doesn't care what we can live with. He looked at the braid over the mantel. What do we do? Find a memory that didn't drown. I Pulled on my cloak. Watch, Emmy. I'll see Mrs. Hargrove. Red Bluff hunched under its roofs. The mercantile bell clanked. Mrs. Hargrove met me with her ledger stare. It took a night I have questions for, I said, setting the drawing down. Here, anything the week Ella Rafferty went missing? Her hand hovered. Midnight scream. She said. Doors slammed toward your way. Later, hoofbeats. 2 horses came near 11. Only one rode back toward dawn. Morton Rafferty wanted coffee for a hangover he swore was wind. And prints before the drift swallowed him, left toe worn. On one boot. Same as that ex-hand of Colt's Danner. Did you see who rode back? No, but I know a limp print when I see one. She tapped the drawing. That child draw this. She remembers more than a man dead drunk. Mrs. Hargrove set her jaw. Then don't let men tidy it away. Take that to Morton and make him put ink to it. I tucked the paper into my cloak. Outside, the air tasted of snow. The wind worried my bonnet strings. I set my face home. Some ghosts don't want naming. Some men count on storms to keep their accounts balanced. I wasn't minded to let either sleep. The storm came back meaner, as if remembering an insult. Drifts reached the fence tops. The yard narrowed to a tunnel from door to barn. We moved through it together, swapping the lead where the wind cut deepest. Emmy, bundled to the eyes, rode. Lark at a walk while I led by the halter. He likes me, she said. He likes brave girls, I told her, and Lark blew steam as if he agreed. Inside, the house answered with creaks like old advice. I told Colt what Mrs. Hargrove had said midnight. Scream, 2 horses, one back by dawn. A left toe scuff she swore belonged to Danner. He went stone still, building a tool in his head. Morton's going to hear it, he said. Cousin or no. You won't be alone, I told him. Twilight came early, blue as skim milk. I went to pull in the wash. The cold worked under my dress like a rumor. When my hand stuck to the line, Colt was suddenly there. He unbuttoned his coat and settled it around my shoulders in one practiced motion. Cedar, soap, day's work. Warmth hit like mercy. You'll need it, I said. I'm running hot, he answered, a half smile remembering itself. Bareheaded, he looked like the weather between us mattered more, that we went in before frost could make us foolish. The lamp haloed the table. Emmy built a village of biscuit cutters and buttons. The healer patrolled for crumbs. Colt took off his ring and rolled it, staring as if the gold might talk. Her name was Ella Laner, he said. She laughed with her whole face. When she got mad, she scrubbed a floor that wasn't dirty. I wasn't good enough to keep her. And I wasn't bad enough to deserve, he swallowed. I've been loyal to the last night I had with her, even if it was the wrong one. The dead don't keep warmer because we freeze, I said. Loyalty doesn't have to be a coffin. If I let go, it feels like turning my back. You turn your face, I said. Love you keep is lived, not guarded like ice. Emmy, fit a button into a cutter. Church, she announced. We sang, Come Thou Fount. She hummed the rest. When we finished, she climbed into my lap and slept, breath warm at my throat. Colt's grief had changed color. He set the ring on the table, not back on his finger. If I'm wrong about that night, what do I do with the hate I saved for myself? Spend it on Weather, I said. Or Danner, if the law proves him. Not on Colt Rafferty. That man's useful. He laughed, startled. The lamp threw his shadow long and steady. Later, after the fire was banked, I found his coat still around me. I didn't give it back. He didn't ask. At the hearth he paused, as if a dreaded bend proved gentler. We don't have to name anything. Tonight, he said. No, I agreed. We only have to keep it from freezing. Outside, the world howled itself to sleep. Inside, error felt like Providence written in wind. I lay on my pallet with Emmy's wooden horse nested at my knee, and listened to the house make room for 3 beating hearts, and one learning how to beat again. The wind went dead, the way it does before trouble. I was scraping ash from the stove when hoofbeats stitched across the yard, 1 horse hard. Emmy, busy building a town of biscuit cutters, stilled. The blue healer slid under the table. The door shoved open without a knock. Snow in a ragged beard, hat low, left boot with a lazy scuff. Danner. He tipped his hat at the braid above the mantel. Afternoon, he said, shutting the latch with his heel. Heard there was coffee. Heard there was company. You heard wrong, I said, hand steady on the poker. Mr. Rafferty's out. No. He smiled. Watched him take the river road. Thought I'd pay respects. Ghost house like this deserves a visit. Emmy pressed against my skirt without a sound. Danner touched the ribbon around Ella Laner's braid. Pretty thing. Shame about the rest. Some shame belongs to the living, I said. What do you want? To tidy, he said. People keep looking at me sideways. You killed her. I made it a statement that he liked that. Your widower was hammered blind. He swung. She screamed. I quieted it for the child. Storm took the tracks. Morton wanted peace. I wanted pay. We understood one another. Coolly north of Hargrove's lower pasture. She won't thaw honest. He glanced at the door. But witnesses are an untidy breed. He lunged. The shove rang my ribs off the iron. Emmy screamed. High, thin. His hand fastened on her arm. I struck with the poker. He yanked me down and the knife flashed. Heat under my palm. Then the heat ran down. He dragged us for the door. Hush, he told Emmy. Or, leave her, I said, dizzy. The room was sliding sideways. The hinge cracked again. Boots hit the threshold, Colts, and stopped hard. He took in the knife, my blood, Emmy's eyes, and something in him settled. Let them go, he said, calm as stock talk. Danner sneered. You going to drink first? I haven't in 3 years, Colt said, and the Colt in his hand came. Level. And I don't miss, sober. Danner jerked, putting me in the line. The shot cracked the room apart. Danner staggered, dropped the knife, folded, cursing. Blood spread where shoulder meets lung. Alive. Surprised. Neighbors run toward a gun in winter. Hargroves came, and Sheriff Morton after them with snow sugaring his mustache. He started to talk and stopped when Emmy flew to my neck and sobbed. Mama. Colt holstered slow and knelt, pressing his hand over mine where I clamped cloth to the cut. Stay, he told me, not the blood. You stay. Morton dragged a chair and finally wrote what he should have 3 years ago. Hargrove's boy. Found Danner alive and ugly. Men took lanterns to the coulee Danner named. Mrs. Hargrove came quiet and washed Emmy's face with the corner of her apron. Fever took me before midnight. I drifted and hammered back, always to Colt's voice counting breaths and Emmy's small hand finding mine like a homing bird. Once, the room steadied. The lamp's ring was gold. The house felt like it had leaned in to listen. Emmy's lashes were wet against my cheek. Mama, she whispered again, not a question but a choosing. The word wrapped around the hurt like bandage and held. The fever left like winter, slow, then all at once. Mrs. Hargrove clanged pans, Colt kept the fire, and Emmy made a job of pulse checker, 2 fingers at my wrist. When I could stand, I stepped onto the porch in his coat. The world was planed white. The sky hurt with brightness. That night fear sat up with me. By lamplight I wrote a letter that dressed as duty and was really cowardice. You deserve a mother who can fill a cradle, a wife who can give more than patience. I folded it twice and slid it under the coffee tea. By morning the tin was crooked and Emmy's stool empty. Colt read the page with his jaw tight. She can read this? More than folks think, I said. Where would she go? Where people prove themselves, he said. The creek. We moved before the thought set. Wind rose like a knife. Snow skated the yard. He took the ridge on Lark. I ran the low trail where willows striped the air. Tracks show as brightness first. I caught the dent of small boots and a hem's drag. Emmy, I called, careful with breath. The creek answered, black water talking under ice. A red ribbon bit a twig. Colt's shout cut the world. Here, under the far bank, tucked where roots made a cave, 2 wet eyes and a mouth set brave. I thought you were leaving, she said. I was wrong, I told her. I'm staying wrong forever. Water ran between like laughter. Colt slung a rope around a trunk and anchored himself. You go, he said. I'm heavier. I belly crawled, the rope burning my hands, the ice complaining under my ribs. At the cave I shoved my coat around her and got her arms round my neck. Scoot like a fox, I whispered. Colt hauled. I pushed. The ice thrummed, sagged, then held. We rolled into snow, and he gathered us like a man picking up everything he owns. Emmy sobbed words loose. Don't leave, don't leave. I wrote a lie and called it love, I said. Never again. We reached home with the storm. Biting. Mrs. Hargrove steamed us and scolded through tears. Colt fed the letter to the stove and watched it curl to ash. Let the only leaving be smoke, he said. When the world quieted, he walked me to the creek. He didn't kneel. Men who've buried enough propose standing. He took his ring from his pocket, warm from being carried. Stay as long as the creek runs, he said. I'm mule stubborn, I answered. You'll be tired of me by spring. Then spring's a good season to be tired. Emmy pressed our hands together, solemn as a judge. Say the words. A week later, Red Bluff paused for a wedding. I wore borrowed blue. He wore a suit that remembered another day. The preacher's Bible shook. Mrs. Hargrove cried until the healer licked her fingers. Emmy stood between us and, when the ring was on, gave me away with all the ceremony in the world. A small hand pushing mine into a careful one. Home. The braid above the mantle hung as always, but the grief around it changed its job. No longer. A door against the living. A reminder to keep the stove warm and love spoken aloud. I tucked Emmy in. Mama forever? She asked. As long as the creek runs, I said, and the old house answered yes in every board.